So for example, if you keep on questioning the internet, if you keep on questioning search engines, right? The acceptance, there would be certain political positions which would not lead, which would not easily lend to its acceptance. But when you ingrain it, when you start making it a habit, so that you don't question it, because that is what culture is. You don't question. So when does a practice become your culture? When you don't question it, when for the thing that you're doing, you don't question why you are doing it. And it is in the interest of certain, that's what I'm saying, certain political groups, and these political groups could be in the government, they could be outside the government, they could be in the corporate sector, they could be in the not-for-profit sector, they could be everywhere, right? So it's in the interest of certain political formations to move technologies from the realm of politics to being neutral tools. Okay. So what we are trying to look at today is again looking at development projects, looking at development and governance projects, and trying to understand inclusion. And even though the abstract said a lot of sectors, we'll focus only on agriculture, right? And we'll focus on agriculture for obvious reasons. Or we will probably explain that as we go. Okay, Stephen Hawking was mentioned yesterday, so let's continue with him. Stephen Hawking, he passed away recently, but in October 2015, there was a Reddit kind of Ask Me Anything event, and this keeps on happening. There are Journal of Science, and they get eminent scientists to speak or to answer questions of their readers. So one of the questions that was asked in October 2015 related to technological unemployment. Let me read it out. Have you thought about the possibility of technological unemployment, where we develop automated processes that ultimately cause large unemployment by performing jobs faster and or cheaper than people can perform them, right? He goes on to talk about Luddites. In particular, do you foresee a world where people work less because so much work is automated? Do you think people will always either find work or manufacture work to be done? So this is a question that someone asked in the context of automation of jobs and its implications for employment across the world. This is what his answer was. If machines produce everything we need, the outcome will depend on how things are distributed. Everyone can enjoy a life of luxurious leisure if the machine-produced wealth is shared, or most people can end up miserably poor if the machine owners successfully lobby against wealth redistribution. But from the context of this talk, what is more important is this. So far, the trend seems to be toward the second option, with technology driving ever-increasing inequality. Right? So this is what...
Is there a second paragraph part of the code?
This is emphasis added from me. The answer is, this is the complete answer. You just emphasize this, But this is what the answer is, and it's still there in that Reddit page. So you can go and have a look at. He did not get a chance to have rejoinders to the comments that came on his answer. But this is what he felt. And here is a person who has been at the cutting edge of science, who has been one of the beneficiaries of technology, and this is what he had to say. What do you feel? Is technology driving more inequality today in the world.
I think even from the ancient world, it's been like that.
Even from the ancient world, it's been
Even modern world, once they all the decentralized, today we had pottery, potters, and the chapel maker, cobblers, and everybody, right? So literally they were all present in individual places. And today, so it's only the technology which has killed literally the rural economy. So rural, the only occupation right now surviving in rural areas is agriculture. Nothing else is surviving. So if that is mechanized, of course.
I personally feel that as technology is close related to the modes of production. How will you produce, the volume you produce, depends on the type of technology you have. And that depends on the type of investment you can do. The person with a certain amount of capital can only invest in the technology. And so here we are seeing somebody who's already way up in the ladder, investing more in technology to create much more wealth. So this income inequality, the wealth inequality will only increase with this kind of use of technology.
yesterday when we started talking about technology. You said technology is for progress. Technology is to make our lives better. Yeah. So why should it always lead to, or why should it lead to inequalities?
There are two sides, right? There's concept.
Whose life is it trying to progress? Whose life is it trying to make it better?
Okay.
Isn't that as well?
Okay. So whose lives?
And added to that, there's consumption and there's production.
Hmm.
So the consumption here can still be the end consumers who are consuming something. May be needed or may not be needed. So jobs are created primarily in production. So now production consumption might become like, you work for Walmart and there is a saying, right? You work for Walmart and you consume Walmart products, and that's how the whole cycle should go. So I feel you look at production and consumption maybe.
So the issues in the production, consumption, whatever, hierarchy using.
And also, who owns and has access to that technology, whether or not you can drive innovation and get the most out of it. It's not that everyone has an equal access to technology.
So that's access. Are you also saying who owns? So that's in the realm of access. So who has access to that technology?
Access, and also some people own the technology and they have the capital to drive innovation.
Own is the people who produce technology. Okay. So who produces technology also matters. So if the technology is produced by Google versus the technology produced by Kosha, from Kosha. Yeah. They may not be same. Yeah. Who produces? So Google producing a technology for artisans versus Kosha producing technology for artisans will also matter. Yeah. So who produces matters. Consumption we have seen, who consumes matters, but who produces also matters. And I think in the first, on the first day, even the second day, this was highlighted that women are missing in technology production, and therefore they are missing out on consuming the benefits that arise out of technology. So who produces matters, and who produces and who produces will have an effect on who consumes and for what. And if there is a disconnect there, inequalities could rise. Yeah. So let's quickly go. Okay. So some numbers I thought just to substantiate what Professor Stephen Hawking was saying. So what I have on the slide here is a graphic from the World Economic Forum's 2015 data, and what it says is the world's wealth is shared. It talks about how the world's wealth is shared amongst its population. So, so the blue symbols here, they are the percentage of world's population. So what it says is 71% of world's population has 3% of the world's wealth, right, in 2015. And that is less than or equal to $10,000, right? 0.7% of the world's population have access to 45% of the world's wealth, which is greater than or equal to $1 million, right? So, in terms of concentration of wealth in recent times, we see it's highly concentrated. A very small percentage of world's population have ownership of most of the world's wealth, right? So that was with respect to wealth. This is the global information technology industry. This is 2016, yeah. So this is 2016 data. There's a world map here, and there are bubbles corresponding to how much is a particular region consuming, or how much is a particular region spending on consuming information technology. Yeah, and by information technology, they mean hardware, software services, and telecommunication, right? And what this shows is North America consumes 34%, or the spend, the total of the total $3.4 trillion spent on information technology in 2016. North America spent 34%, Western Europe spent 23%, and 28% was the entire Asia Pacific, of which a large part was Japan, China, Korea, all that. Yeah. So we'll focus on North America and Western Europe. These have been the highest consumers of information technology over in the recent years, right? Now this is a map of United States, and this is a map that was put out by the Occupy Wall Street movement people. What this map does is it has divided the entire landmass of United States into four or five areas, and almost 50% or maybe more than 50% of United States, if it were to be divided on the basis of wealth that is owned, would be owned by only 1% of its population. Yeah? The remaining, say, 2/3, I would say, would be owned by 9%. So 10% would own close to 60% of the wealth in United States. 40% would own a small little dot. Right? So in the entire map of United States, 40% would own a small little dot. Right? And United States has been one of the largest consumers of information technology in recent years. This is UK. Yeah? So another large consumer of information technology in recent years. And this is again a 2016 data. What the graphic says is it's a pound shilling there, and that has it's actually a pie chart. So that has been divided into three sectors. The biggest, and what it says is, of the gain in of the increase in wealth in UK over a 15-year period from 2000 to 2015, 26% of that increase went to the richest 1%. Yeah? And 7% went to the poorest 50%. So in a 15-year period, the increase in wealth in UK went to the top 1%. 1/4 of the entire increase in wealth in UK went to the top 1%, and the bottom 50% were able to apportion only 7% of the increase in this wealth. So what does this point to? So we're looking at, in terms of inequality in the world, less than 1% of the people own almost close to half of the world's wealth. In terms of information, in terms of regions which have been consuming a lot of information technology, North America, US and UK, the way they have consumed, now these are correlations, and they're not very statistically significant, but they are going, or it's the same period. There is increase in consumption of information technology. There is increase, or there is a large concentration of wealth and income that is happening, right? This is what is happening in India. I have two graphs. One of the graph shows the wealth share of India's top 10%. So what it says is from 2000, when it was close to 2/3, in 2014 it has gone up to 3/4. Yeah, so from a figure of roughly around 66% in 2000, today this is up to 2014. The wealth share of India's top 10% has gone up to about 74%, right? The
74% of the
total wealth. So the total wealth in the country is, of the total wealth that Indians have, 74% is with the top 10%. So only 10% of the people have access to 74% of the wealth in India, right? In terms of 1%, the world average between 2000 and 2014 has been slightly less than 50%. So it actually went down in 2010 around that recession period, 2007-8, but it has been, say, around 47-48%, the world average. In terms of India, this has actually gone up from close to 36% in 2000 to close to 50% in 2014, right? So the Indian wealth concentration has been increasing over the last 14-15 years. In terms of distribution, in different, if you look at, again, this is wealth concentration. India is home to most of the world's poor. Yeah. So, sorry. This one, the red ones here, yeah, that is India. You'll see that most, so it's around 10%, 10 to, so India has the highest proportion in these. So we are home to the world's poor in terms of wealth, right? China is the world's middle class, and obviously US and Western Europe is where the wealth is concentrated. Now, we looked at how wealth concentration is moving in India, and this is how the IT industry revenues have grown over the last 15 years. So we see that the IT revenues, or revenues, contribution of the information technology sector to the country's GDP has been growing. Concentration of wealth has been growing, yeah, in India, and more or less across the world we see a lot of wealth concentration, while a lot of IT consumption is also going on, right? So these are some data points which I thought I'll highlight to substantiate what Professor Stephen Hawking was talking about. Okay, so Vidisha had asked me to focus on class, so this is what we'll be looking at. So we'll look at class. The Oxford Dictionary says it's a system that divides members of a society into sets based on social or economic status. So the focus here is economic status. We are not looking at caste. We are more looking at economic status. There is a large correlation between your economic status and your social status. but then there are, it's not causal. Yeah. So Marx has said that a class is a group of people sharing common relations to labor and means of production. So taking these definitions, we'll look at farmers in India and try to understand what are the concerns they have with respect to whatever they are doing, and within the farming community we are looking at smallholders. So the focus would be on smallholders. Some of you may have followed the recent marches in Mumbai and Delhi by farmers, and which means that this is a group of people who have some genuine concerns, who are willing to march, who are willing to go out and see if someone would be willing to listen to their voices. Okay, again some more data. This data is, I'm sorry, I'll not, after this we'll not have more numbers, but this is an All India Rural Financial Inclusion Survey that NABARD conducted in 2017, January 2017 to June 2017 is when this survey was conducted. The results came out this year, I think April or May this year. The survey was a national level survey, and it offers a comprehensive overview of the rural population in terms of their status of livelihoods and level of financial inclusion. It covered 29 states, 245 districts, and it looked at tier 3 to tier 6 towns as per RBI classification, which means towns with a population of less than 50,000, right? And the survey was conducted in approximately 40,000 households. Now this chart, what it says is percentile of average monthly household income, yeah, of all the households who were part of this survey. Of all the households in these tier 3 to tier 6 towns, 48% are classified as agricultural households, 52% are classified as non-agricultural households. And agricultural households are households which have had an income of at least 5,000, yeah, in the preceding year every month through agriculture. Assuming we consider those who live in tier 3 to tier 6 kind of towns and villages as rural population, 48% of the rural households are agricultural households, 52% of the rural households are non-agricultural households as per that classification. This is all the households in rural areas. The monthly household income ranges from 1,000 to roughly about 50,000. Yeah. So this is the monthly household income. This is the 10th percentile. So 1,000 is the 10th percentile. 48,000 is roughly about 98 or 99 percentile. Yeah. So that is how the and you will see that beyond, say, around the 88th percentile, after that it goes up pretty quickly.
10% of the people surveyed, household surveyed.
Sorry?
The next axis, 10% of the household surveyed have an average income of 1,000.
Yes. Yeah. So the bottom 10%. So when you stack all these households in terms of their monthly incomes, 10% will be less than 1,000, 20% will be less than 2,500, 30% will be less than 3,550.
And this is only for agricultural households.
This is all households. So this is for all rural households, of which 48% are agricultural households, 52% are non-agricultural households. So this is all rural households.
Does it include any income support by government as well?
This includes all forms of income.
Manrega,
Yeah.
Manrega.
Yeah. So I think I have that. Yeah. So it includes these as sources of income: cultivation, livestock rearing, other enterprise, wage labor. That's where Narega will come in. Government private service. Yeah. So if they're engaged in any of these, any forms of salaried employment, and other sources. So all sources of income is what it is looking at for households in rural areas, and rural areas are areas which have population of less than 50,000, right? So this is what it is. When you look at the average monthly household income, it comes to 8,931 for agricultural households, 7,269 for non-agricultural households, and if you take an average across both, it's roughly about 8,000. So this is 2017 numbers. So that's in terms of income. In terms of in the agricultural households, in terms of size class of land possessed, we see that roughly 13% of all the agricultural households have land that is more than 2 hectares, right? 87% of households have, these are agricultural households, have land that is less than 2 hectares. Yeah. So 87%, and then there are classifications. You can see that 31% is 0.01 to 0.4 hectare, 30% is 0.41 to 1 hectare. So less than 1 hectare is almost 60%, right? And when we talk of smallholders, we are talking of 60 to 70% of all agricultural households in rural areas.
This issue with the graphic. The first gray should be more like
See, this less than 0.01 hectares, these may have homestead plots. Yeah, so that's why it looks like an outlier. Right? What we should more be concerned with are these three numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, this is average monthly income and consumption expenditure per household. So income we saw, yeah, and this is also consumption expenditure. So if you were to look at, I don't know if it is visible, the font size is low, but this is how it is, yeah. So agricultural households, the income is 8,931, consumption expenditure is 7,152. Non-agricultural households, average income is 7,269, consumption expenditure is 6,187, right? And this consumption expenditure is on food and non-food items, right? Now what is interesting is this. So if you look at the 10th, so the bottom 10 households in terms of their income, the income is 1,293 is the average income. The consumption expenditure is 2,465. Yeah. For non-agricultural households, this is 793 is the income. Consumption expenditure is 1,899 per month, right? And that deficit exists even for the second decile. Roughly around the third decile, you achieve parity. Yeah. So 30% of these households in rural areas are not able to meet their monthly consumption expenditure through their regular source of income, right? Okay, and this may not be very relevant, but I was tempted to put this out because this survey was conducted in January 2017, just after the demonetization drive. Yeah. So this is what was the financial behavior in terms of the ATM services. 23% of rural households had accessed ATM services, 1.6% had accessed mobile banking services, and 0.8% had accessed internet banking services. Right? So I will leave you with that, and then I'll request Sanjay to talk about his work on agricultural markets.